My pleasure to have you today, my friends. Have you ever smiled at a meeting while your heart was screaming?
I did. For 1,095 days straight. That's 3 years, every single workday, pouring energy into a smile that was fundamentally a lie. Until one morning I stood up, went to turn on my computer, and the screen went black, a blank, unforgiving slate. I realized in that silent moment of technological failure that I was looking at a perfect mirror of my soul. It had simply run out of charge.
That is.
Wow.
That's a powerful and deeply relatable image.
Isn't it?
Just because right to the core paradox of, contemporary high-achieving life, the expectation is that success looks effortless.
Right.
That your systems never crash, either digital or emotional. And that conflict between the polished, successful exterior we are all compelled to present and the internal reality of a slow, draining failure. Absolutely. Welcome to Enchanted Life Inside. We don't just observe those universal, sometimes painful truths. We roll up our sleeves and, we analyze the source code. Today we are undertaking a critical deep dive into a narrative called The Unseen Crack, a deeply personal journey that exposes the staggering cost of pretending, the tyranny of perfectionism, and the profoundly liberating power of finally choosing honesty with yourself.
And the sources for this dive are structured almost like an emotional blueprint. We have this intensely personal account, essentially a confession, which allows us to dismantle the complex psychological mechanisms we all deploy daily to avoid true vulnerability.
So what's our mission today?
Our mission today is to move through the 3 necessary phases of internal transformation. Phase 1, establishing the airtight mask, then Phase 2, the raw, intimate confession, and finally, Phase 3, the arrival at a state of grounded, integrated self-awareness.
Okay, let's jump right into that crisis setup and the establishment of Phase 1. The mask. Our story begins on a Tuesday morning, late autumn. You know that time of year? The air is thin and brittle.
Almost matching the narrator's mood.
Exactly. It begins with the ritual of standing before the bathroom mirror. And this wasn't just, checking his appearance, it was the daily calibration.
The ritual is so crucial because it's a form of preparation for war, in a way. He describes adjusting the tie, smoothing the hair, achieving that polished, presentable look. This look is not about confidence, it's about control. It's the visual assurance that he fits the societal template of success. The logic is, if he looks successful, he must be successful.
And the outward success was undeniable. I mean, we're talking about a respected position at a cutting-edge tech company, a beautiful family, a beautiful home, the whole picture of success.
It wasn't just success, though, was it? It was success meticulously curated for consumption.
Yes, that's the word. Curated.
Yeah.
He had internalized this idea that if he was going to be successful, he had to be seen as flawless.
But here's where the cognitive breakdown happens. As he stood there, ready to face the world with this perfect high-resolution image, the internal truth was a slow, insidious fracture.
A fracture that had grown into an emotional roar he could no longer silence. The massive energy drain required to maintain this facade was beginning to cause, systems failure. And the mirror provided the damning evidence.
So he wasn't seeing the image he had practiced anymore?
Not at all. He got sight of the tired shadows beneath his eyes, the slight tension around his mouth. It was the visual proof that the performance was completely unsustainable. His body language was betraying the lie he was telling the world.
That moment in front of the glass is the first critical crack. It's the realization that the internal reality, the fragmentation and fear, was starting to bleed into the exterior.
And the narrator admits the immense realization that struck him. I wasn't fine. I hadn't been fine for a long time.
And that is a terrifying thing to admit to yourself.
It is. And this is where the courage comes in, because accepting that truth means letting go of the control you've been clinging to for years. It means admitting, perhaps for the very first time, that the entire foundation of your identity, the success, the stability, might be built on sand.
That single moment in front of the mirror, the recognition of the exhausted, fraudulent self, it just encapsulates the struggle of so many high-functioning professionals today.
Absolutely.
They have perfected the art of appearing put together, but at an extraordinary internal cost. The irony is that the mirror, which is intended for aesthetic confirmation, becomes a tool for existential confrontation.
So let's make this highly personal. If the narrator's conflict is universal, then what are you, our listener, hiding? We want to connect this internal conflict directly to your life and the constant, exhausting adult struggle to maintain that 100% capacity rating. We need to ask yourself right now as you listen and truly let the question resonate. What are you pretending not to see? Because that question, well, that's the first step toward reclaiming your energy. Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of this constant battle. We've established the facade, the polished surface. Now we need to define the draining effort required to keep it buffed. We call it the performance of wellness.
And this is a really critical psychological distinction. This isn't simply being polite or, having good workplace etiquette. This is the conscious, continuous expenditure of cognitive and emotional energy spent maintaining that broken facade, the illusion of perfect functionality.
What's driving it?
It is driven by a deep-seated, largely unspoken societal contract that successful people are supposed to have it all together.
And if you breach that contract, if you admit weakness, fatigue, or confusion, there's this deep fear that you will be judged as inefficient, vulnerable, or fundamentally failing at modern adulthood.
Yes. The pressure to conform to this ideal is immense, especially in performance-driven fields like tech or finance.
So to uphold that contract, you need a highly effective verbal shield. For the narrator, the source has identified this practice phrase, almost a mantra, as busy but good.
Oh, that phrase. It's a masterpiece of defensive communication.
It's a weapon of self-defense, isn't it?
Oh, sure.
It's insidious because it manages conversational expectation. It deflects genuine inquiry, moving immediately to the assumption of positive productivity, busy, coupled with effortless well-being, good.
And the narrator admits he repeated it with such conviction that even he started to believe it.
Right.
This is a classic example of cognitive dissonance management. By constantly verbalizing the wellness, he was actively trying to align his external presentation with his internal belief system, reinforcing the lie until it felt true. It's a form of emotional self-deception that actively prevents necessary self-reflection.
And the cost of this performance is, well, it's high. It's paid in the currency of mental and physical energy. The sources detail two primary debilitating internal consequences of maintaining this facade. The first one is constant anxiety.
It's crucial we distinguish this from normal stress. Normal stress is localized, and it resolves when the stressor is removed. This anxiety, as defined in the source, is a constant hum, like static interfering with a radio signal.
I like that, a constant hum.
It's an ambient noise that prevents genuine psychological rest. It colors every experience, making peace virtually impossible because the threat is internal, the fear of the mask slipping.
We see specific grinding examples of this in the narrator's life, which really illustrate the impact on his executive function. He describes waking up 2 hours before the alarm, his mind just racing with anxieties he refused to name.
Lying awake until 2 a.m., obsessing over emails?
Yes.
Let's dedicate some time to the neurology of this. Waking up hours before the alarm is often the HPA axis, the body's stress response system dumping cortisol and adrenaline into the system.
Because the mind hasn't properly shut down.
Exactly. The mind is trying to solve the problems that the performance hides, leading to constant low-level vigilance. It's stuck in fight or flight.
And what about the ritual? I was struck by this detail. He had a compulsion loop, checking work messages no fewer than 17 times before finally falling into a restless sleep. 17 times.
That obsessive checking is textbook anxiety management through false control. The narrator is seeking assurance. Did I miss anything? Am I still safe? But the act of checking itself is completely counterproductive.
How so?
Well, every single check reinforces the belief that the world is a dangerous, unpredictable place that must be constantly monitored. It's an energy sink. It prevents the prefrontal cortex, which handles strategic thought and emotional regulation, from engaging in deep rest. The more he checked, the more exhausted his decision-making capacity became, which then just fed back into the anxiety. It's decision fatigue born from fear.
And that perpetual state of low charge leads directly to the second symptom, which I think is even more profound, the exhausted soul. This is not just physical tiredness that a strong coffee or nap can fix. This is profound, deep-seated exhaustion, the spiritual and emotional cost of living a life that is fundamentally inauthentic.
This profound depletion is what the sources capture so beautifully through the partner's observation. Sarah's description, it just cuts through all the jargon.
It really does. You're like a phone with 1% battery. You keep showing me you're fully charged.
Devastatingly accurate.
It is, because it highlights the deception, but also the critical danger. When a phone is at 1%, the system is designed to shut down non-essential functions to preserve the core.
But the human mind, while performing, can't do that. It is running the most demanding app, the performance of self, while desperately trying to conserve the last drop of reserves.
So when you're at this critical 1% capacity, the instinct isn't radical change.
No, it's to try surface-level fixes. You want a quick patch to maintain the illusion.
So the narrator tried to buy his way out of the problem. He downloaded meditation apps.
Used 3 times.
Right, used them 3 times before the effort required to even open them felt too draining. He bought expensive journals for better habits that served only as a monument to his failure to start.
And the gym membership that became nothing more than a quiet monthly expense, a tribute to the man he wished he was, not the man he was.
These attempts always fail because they address the symptom, the fatigue, the stress, the lack of focus without addressing the root cause.
Which is the performance itself.
Exactly. The surface fixes simply become new demands on the already depleted 1% battery. They become another source of failure when they aren't maintained perfectly.
And this brings us to the core barrier to healing, summarized by that powerful quote from his therapist, Dr. Bennett. The insight is just razor sharp.
We spend so much energy maintaining the illusion of wholeness that we never have any left to actually heal.
This is a devastating insight into psychological scarcity. The act of hiding the brokenness consumes the energy needed to confront it. If you are constantly focused on presenting a flawless exterior, you cannot spare the cognitive bandwidth or emotional resources required for introspection, vulnerability, and genuine repair. The performance actively prevents genuine wellness.
It traps you.
It traps the individual in a perpetual cycle of depletion. We have to understand that until the energy dedicated to the lie is freed up, nothing fundamentally changes.
It's an internal zero-sum game. You can't use the same resource pool to both hide the crack and fill it in. We've established the staggering cost of the performance of wellness. But we still need to unmask the engine. Why do we feel this consuming compulsion to uphold such an exhausting, potentially career-damaging performance? What is the core fuel behind the need for a flawless exterior?
The sources point unequivocally to a pattern that is, it's endemic among high achievers. The perfectionism trap.
Okay, let's define this clearly and analytically. This is not healthy striving. We're not talking about ambition.
Not at all. It's a destructive psychological pattern where a healthy, productive drive for success, it metastasizes into an intense, paralyzing fear of failure. And we have to understand that this fear is often rooted in perceived self-worth.
Exactly. And this is the danger. It rarely looks like a character flaw to the outside world. It masquerades as ambition.
That's it. People trapped in this cycle often feel intense pride in their attention to detail and their high standards, viewing perfectionism as their greatest strength. In reality, it is often a crippling vulnerability driven by a fixed mindset, the belief that their abilities are static, and therefore any mistake is a permanent indictment of their core identity.
And this trap is the direct, high-octane fuel for the performance of wellness.
It is.
If your core belief is that any flaw, no matter how small, no matter how internal, is a catastrophic failure, then the external world must see a flawless exterior. It's the why behind the lie, the internal demand for the 100% mask.
And we see this destructive mechanism beautifully illustrated in the work anecdote detailed in the sources, when the company announced a major restructuring, immediately putting the narrator's respected position at risk.
The immediate default psychological response was not strategic planning.
No, it was sheer panic, cloaked in professional ambition.
His old behavior kicked in instantly. He went into overdrive, working late nights, sending emails at 3 a.m., trying to prove my indispensability through sheer hustle.
And we have to analyze that hustle. Was it genuine ambition? No. True ambition is proactive, it's strategic, and it often involves delegation or calculated risk. This was reactive, desperate panic.
It was an attempt to maintain the flawless exterior by using sheer brute force.
Yes, fueled by the existential terror of being seen as disposable, replaceable, or worst of all, flawed. The perfectionist isn't working for success, they are working to avoid shame.
The sources emphasize that this period of frantic activity was the pinnacle of his inauthenticity. He was physically present, producing work, but emotionally and spiritually, he was just running on fumes, making himself indispensable in ways that were inefficient and, frankly, unsustainable.
The necessity of the shift, therefore, had to be radical. If the entire engine is fueled by fear, escaping the trap requires a complete reversal, a deliberate, conscious shift away from the impossible standard of perfection toward radical, undeniable honesty.
It demands rejecting that impossible standard and internalizing the idea that vulnerability is not failure. In fact, we argue that vulnerability is the absolute gateway to actual sustainable strength. The strength to ask for help, the strength to set a boundary, the strength to say, I don't know. That intellectual understanding, however, it's useless without an emotional trigger. The profound shift away from the performance of wellness doesn't happen during a strategic planning section or while reading a self-help book. It happens in a quiet, pivotal moment of surrender. For the narrator, that was the Saturday morning intervention with his partner, Sarah.
The sources detailed the intimacy of this moment. Sarah was the key because she understood the narrator's shield. And the critical difference was that she didn't ask the deflection-inducing question, "How are you?"
Which she could instantly rebut with, "Busy but good."
Of course. Instead, she bypassed the facade entirely and said, with quiet, deep concern, "I'm worried about you."
That distinction is immense. It moves the conversation from a superficial check-in to a genuine statement of observation and care. She wasn't asking for a status report. She was sharing her fear.
And then she deployed the analogy that was so painfully precise, the image that had resonated with us earlier.
"You're like a phone with 1% battery. You keep showing me you're fully charged."
And the source notes that was the moment the practice reassurance just stopped. He couldn't deploy the shield against the truth spoken with love.
The breakthrough wasn't calculated. It was emotional exhaustion leading to surrender. The narrator chose honesty over the performance, and the entire structure of the facade finally crumbled. He didn't have the energy to rebuild the wall in that moment.
The confession itself was noted as quiet, just a whisper, but world-changing in its impact. 3 simple words: "I'm not okay."
Think about the gravity of those 3 words when spoken by someone whose identity has been built entirely on being perpetually okay and in control.
It's a seismic event.
It is. The relief that followed that admission was described as palpable, like a physical weightlifting. He finally let the truth pour out. The fear of failure, the internal pressure, the terrifying feeling of being on the edge of collapse, of constantly running the risk of being found out.
He had finally stopped using all his precious 1% energy to keep the lid on the pressure cooker.
And Sarah's response was the perfect confirmation that vulnerability is not a trap.
"You don't have to pretend with me. We can't fix what we won't acknowledge." That simple statement is the operational key to unlocking the healing journey. Acknowledgement is the prerequisite for repair.
That realization that he had an ally and that the truth didn't lead to condemnation led him to the next terrifying step: seeking help in the therapist's office.
And the narrator describes walking into Dr. Bennett's office felt like stepping into enemy territory, surrendering control, admitting weakness.
That feeling of surrender is highly instructive for our listener. If your identity is tied to being the one in control, the one who advises others, admitting you need help feels like a monumental defeat, a public failure of your self-sufficiency.
You're paying someone else to see the brokenness you spent years hiding.
But the core insight Dr. Bennett offered was immediately illuminating and relatable. He used the analogy of broken things. We can't fix them if we pretend they aren't broken.
And the narrator realized he had been treating his deep internal struggles like a high-end, broken appliance hidden in the back of a closet, hoping the brokenness would somehow resolve itself through sheer avoidance.
Instead of calling the repairman, the therapist, he was just hiding the appliance and buying newer, shinier objects.
The meditation apps, the journal.
To distract everyone, including himself. This is where Dr. Bennett began the work of focus on pattern recognition.
And this shift from symptom chasing to pattern recognition is the true deep dive of therapy. Dr. Bennett helped him map the destructive loops he'd been blind to.
Like perfectionism masquerading as ambition.
Exactly. And the tactical strategy of avoidance disguised as constant busyness.
The therapist, acting as the external observer, helped the narrator connect the dots. The deep desire to be busy was not about productivity. It was an elaborate form of avoidance. If he was running fast enough, he wouldn't have to stop and confront the quiet, painful truth of his own fear.
And that external perspective is crucial because when you are inside the perfectionist track, you are pathologically incapable of seeing the walls you have built around yourself. The confession opened the door. The therapy provided the map to exit the maze.
The analysis of the pattern is one thing, but the true change begins with action. The real-world application of this insight is defined in the sources as the radical act of honesty.
So we move from the internal concept of acceptance to the external choice of embracing authenticity, the conscious daily choice of truth over appearance. Vulnerability stops being a passive feeling and becomes...
Vulnerability is the action.
Yes, it's a muscle that needs to be actively worked.
The narrator's life became immediately defined by small, uncomfortable, but fundamentally honest conversations. This required him to step outside his comfort zone multiple times a day, particularly in the environment that had demanded the greatest performance, his high-pressure job.
And the first authentic action was a simple yet profound shift in professional boundary setting. So relevant to our listener. The old perfectionist behavior was automatically saying yes to a new, highly demanding project, despite already being at 110% capacity.
And that yes was fueled by the fear of being seen as anything less than indispensable.
Of course.
The new behavior, after the confession and the work with Dr. Bennett, was radically different. He took a deep, grounding breath and said, I'm actually at capacity right now. If this is a priority for the team, I need to deprioritize something else or get additional support to execute it properly.
Let's just pause on the precision of that statement. It's not just saying no. It is an honest, competent negotiation. He didn't say, I'm too stressed. He focused on resource allocation, which is the language of business. He prioritized quality and honesty over feigned capacity.
And the surprising result. The sources note the world didn't end. His boss didn't fire him. In fact, his boss appreciated the honesty, recognizing it as genuine strategic communication rather than panic scrambling.
So the honesty led to a better distribution of workload.
And paradoxically improved his professional standing because he was communicating competence and self-awareness.
This small, difficult act created an immediate and profound, expanding authenticity through his entire life. It was a ripple effect.
He started admitting confusion in meetings instead of just nodding along, saving himself hours of remedial work later.
He began declining social invitations when rest was genuinely needed, honoring his 1% battery status. He confessed his anxiety to a close friend, strengthening that bond instantly.
And the consequence of these micro decisions was exponential. He found that relationships deepened because they were built on truth, not facade. And crucially, sleep began to normalize because the brain finally received permission to stop the constant vigilance required to uphold the elaborate lie.
But the journey had one final necessary test, almost designed by the universe to prove the resilience of his transformation: job loss. The company announced the unexpected restructuring, and his respected hard-won position was put on the chopping block. This was the moment the old panic should have consumed him entirely.
But he utilized his newfound internal strength. The sources emphasized the difference in his approach. Instead of panicked hustle, the 3 a.m. emails, he confronted his boss with a calm, radical, vulnerable honesty.
What did he say?
I understand the need for the restructuring, and I'm concerned about my position. But I also want you to know that my worth isn't defined by this job.
That realization, that internal declaration of self-worth, is the core armor against the perfectionism trap. When your worth is internal, external threats like job loss become challenges to be managed, not identity crises that threaten annihilation.
He had decoupled his identity from his output.
So what was the outcome?
The position was eliminated. But instead of the expected paralyzing panic, he felt a surprising sense of peace. He had financial preparation, transferable skills, and, most importantly, the psychological tools to face uncertainty without collapsing into shame.
He had stopped running from himself, so redundancy became an opportunity for redirection, not a source of trauma.
And this personal courage became a profound act of authenticity as service. Colleagues, witnessing his transformation, provided unsolicited feedback. One said, "I've always admired your honesty. It's made me reconsider how I show up at work."
Wow.
And crucially, another colleague confessed they sought help for their own intense burnout after witnessing the narrator's transparent journey.
So your authenticity creates vital space for others to be authentic. When you drop the mask, you give explicit permission for those around you to question the necessity and the crushing cost of their own facade.
The positive impact is never just personal.
It ripples outwards, creating a healthier, more honest community.
This successful integration of his brokenness leads us to the final, most sustainable phase of transformation: living with the truth. And this requires a fundamental reframing of healing.
We have to discard the cultural myth that healing is a return to an original, unbroken state of perfection. The sources clarify that the healing journey is not a destination. It is the ongoing, daily process of choosing authenticity over appearance, built on small, consistent choices. It's a process of growth, not erasure.
And the ultimate liberating outcome of that process is true self-awareness, the profound ability to see and accept oneself completely, cracks and all.
Not just accepting the strengths.
No, but accepting the flaws as integral parts of the whole.
This brings us to the core philosophy of psychological resilience, which the narrator discovered: the power of integration. He learned that true healing is not about the erasure of flaws, but their integration into a more complex, stronger self. The imperfections are not failures to be hidden. They are now historical markers built into the architecture.
He reflects on this process beautifully. Each crack has become a place where light can enter. That changes the entire relationship with past pain and mistakes. They are no longer sources of shame or things to fear. They are sources of light, depth, and resilience that make him relatable and strong.
This notion of integration echoes profound wisdom, crossing modern industry and ancient philosophy. The sources mention the analogy noted by CEO Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. Breakthroughs and true growth don't come from avoiding pain or stress, but from having the courage to wrestle with it, to endure the discomfort of learning and failure.
True transformation requires staring unflinchingly at what is broken.
And having the courage to begin repair rather than perpetually attempting to avoid the admission of damage.
In a world utterly obsessed with filters, with digital curation, and with the polished superficiality of social media profiles, choosing authenticity, choosing to show the crack, becomes the revolutionary act. The most profound lesson for the high-achieving adult is that personal growth begins with a simple, radical act of honesty toward yourself and those closest to you.
This is a genuine rejection of the tyranny of appearances. It is the reclaiming of massive amounts of energy that were previously wasted on pretense and redirecting that energy toward genuine, sustainable growth, real connection, and actual productivity.
This shift toward prioritizing internal integrity over external metrics is powerfully supported by one of the foundational principles highlighted in the journey, a wisdom statement the narrator adopted.
Which was,
when you're not skilled enough, be good enough. When you have no money, keep your heart pure.
that statement grounds the entire process. It reinforces the rejection of external metrics. It's about prioritizing core internal values. A pure heart, meaning integrity and honesty, and sufficiency, being good enough, over impossible, high-bar standards of perfection, skilled enough, rich enough.
It is the ultimate antidote to the perfectionism trap.
It allows the individual to rest in their inherent worth rather than their performance metrics.
Now, this central transforming message is for you, our listener, right now. Your brokenness isn't a failure, it's an invitation. An invitation to stop hiding and start healing. An invitation to trade the exhausting performance of perfection for the liberating, sustainable practice of authenticity.
So we offer a direct CTA for self-reflection, demanding the same radical honesty the narrator had to find. Ask yourself, in the quiet truth of your own mind, what radical act of honesty is required for your true self-awareness to start right now?
And here's the deeper challenge for the week ahead. If your brokenness is truly an invitation and not a failure, what small, difficult, authentic step will you take this week? Will you choose to say no to a request? Will you make an admission of fatigue or confusion to a trusted friend or colleague? Or will you simply choose to honor your exhaustion and not check that email 17 times before allowing your mind to rest? The small choices build the new foundation. Let's return one final time to the mirror, the place where the crisis began, the silent witness to transformation.
The narrator sees a profoundly different image now. The practiced smile, the 100% mask is gone. It has been replaced by a genuine one that reaches my eyes.
The shadows are still there.
Yes, but they are now acknowledged as part of the story. They are no longer something to be frantically denied or feared. They are integrated.
The final resonant truth he discovered, and the truth we offer to you as a guidepost for your own life, is this profound integration. I am broken in places, and I am whole. And somehow, miraculously, these two truths can exist together.
That integration is true self-awareness. It is the deep, enduring peace found when you finally accept your full, complex, imperfect reality. It is a peace of knowing you are no longer spending 99% of your energy maintaining an illusion.
This is our journey together. Remember to follow Enchanted Life Inside to catch the latest deep dives as we continue to explore the challenging landscapes of modern life.
Your honest feedback is crucial to our shared growth. We want to hear your story, and we want to know what this deep dive revealed about your own life. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This will help us improve greatly on this journey with you.
We're asking for one specific metric today. A simple, honest assessment of your current state, directly referencing Sarah's powerful analogy, without explanation, without the performance of wellness. We want the truth of your internal reserves.
Reply with your current battery percent, 100. No explanation needed.
I look forward to seeing you again soon, exploring more of these ordinary things that happen every day but are, well, very much worth thinking about. Have you ever smiled at a meeting while your heart was screaming? This is where I begin. This is where we all begin when we finally stop pretending. My name's Eli, E-L-I, Eli. Thanks everyone. See you next time.